Hello, my dear viewers. I'm Olga Demchuk, a researcher of the inner world of personality. Today's topic is reflected in your eyes. I would like to draw your attention to why we need another person and why our relationships with others, especially with those close to us, are often so complicated. First and foremost, the eyes of another individual allow us to genuinely create a distinctly different mirror in which we are truly reflected, especially when compared to the familiar one we are accustomed to looking into and observing ourselves within. When you carefully look at yourself in the mirror, I think every one of you has undoubtedly noticed that you may physically look the very same. But whether you truly like yourself or not, deep down, ultimately depends entirely on your current mood and emotional state. And when an individual person experiences some truly deep-seated dissatisfaction, they are often unable to genuinely see themselves as truly likable in their own personal reflection. A person who is accustomed to devaluing themselves has no opportunity to view themselves with acceptance. And the eyes of another person are like a chance to look at yourself in a different mirror, in which we are reflected differently. In this reflective mirror, we can undoubtedly and clearly see not only our inherent strengths and positive attributes, but also those more challenging aspects of ourselves that we often tend to conceal or hide away. And we observe this through the reactions of another person to us. But still, it is a different perspective. If there is too much self-aggression, then even a kindly, warm-spoken salesperson or waiter can suddenly make us feel like crying. In that moment, their simple friendliness touches something raw inside us, and we become deeply moved. In addition to the profound fact that the eyes of another individual allow us to truly see ourselves from a distinctly different angle, to be genuinely reflected in another mirror, a person who wholeheartedly accepts us significantly and profoundly reduces the considerable amount of our self-aggression, offering a sense of peace and understanding. If I am truly needed by at least one individual, if I am genuinely loved by at least one person, my entire attitude toward myself significantly changes. It's as if I can truly identify myself with the precise image that the person who genuinely loves me reflects back to me, almost like a mirror. I have repeatedly encountered in my practice situations where a person cannot be without relationships. That is, they have such a level of self-aggression and self-hatred that they constantly need not even stable relationships, but rather this state of being in love. When we are in love, when a relationship is just beginning, we all tend to idealize both ourselves and our partner a little. Both we and our partner try to present ourselves in the best possible light, creating this greenhouse-like, idealistic space where only the very best exists. And this very best, as if truly pulls a person out of the confining space of their grievances. But if only this kind of purely idealistic space is truly able to completely neutralize the pervasive negativity directed at oneself, then at the precise moment when the idealization inevitably fades and more or less stable, enduring relationships begin, let's say, with the complexities of everyday life, the attitude of the other person can no longer adequately compensate for this deep-seated self-aggression. And then the search for falling in love again begins. A person feels as if they have fallen out of love, but in reality it is simply that there is not enough compensation for their own self-aggression. So we have already covered 2 points together. The third point, the first point. To see oneself through someone else's eyes. The opportunity to reduce self-aggression. If I am loved by someone, it means I have value. And the third point is, of course, the ability to assign another person as the cause of your own negative emotions. Most often in the presence of others, we delegate to them the reason for our self-attack. That is, for example, when someone does not meet our expectations in some way, at that moment we attack ourselves, forcing ourselves to obtain what we desire. But it seems to us that the other person, by refusing or being unwilling to meet our expectations, is attacking us. Or when someone says something while being deeply immersed in their own world, having their own thoughts and internal reflections, and we do not get what we truly desire, we often attack ourselves. And once again, without fully owning our aggression, we tend to assign the role of the aggressor to the other person. In reality, we are the ones attacking, but because we cannot acknowledge our aggressiveness, we assign the role of the attacker to someone else. For example, this is how you might assign me the role of the aggressor, as if I am speaking specifically about you. As if I have caught you out, set up a camera, and know everything about you. And then it feels as though I am personally attacking you. This happens when it is completely impossible to accept your own dark emotions. In that case, someone else is always being blamed for them. In addition to these 3 points, there is also a fourth. This is when we delegate responsibility for what didn't work out to someone else. For example, when one partner says, "I'll keep an eye on the map, we'll drive there or walk there," and something goes wrong, that person is made responsible and seen as the one who is bad or at fault. In that moment, we forget that we too can make mistakes, and we don't miss the chance to assert ourselves at the expense of the other's shortcomings. We shift the responsibility onto them. Or, for example, consider a situation when we're setting the dinner table and the other person, perhaps due to an oversight, forgot to buy something important, and I'm already feeling quite tense because I've been cooking a great deal. I then start to unload my accumulated tension onto them, essentially blaming them for not buying, let's say, the essential apples. This opportunity, we've already discussed this in previous videos, even when there's a cat at home, there's a chance to offload some of that responsibility for what's happening. Or when a favorite mug can't be found. When someone else is at home, there's an opportunity to redirect the aggression we usually turn inward onto another person. In addition to that, we need the other person, so we can hand over control to them. It feels good to relax. For example, you're walking in a city where your friend knows their way around better than you do, and you say to them, "Lead the way." Or your partner or friend says, "Let me come up with a plan for how we'll do this, like, I don't know, how we'll celebrate your birthday, or how we'll organize this trip." We hand over responsibility, and in that moment, our tension decreases. Because when we are the ones responsible, it takes much more energy. We're constantly making sure we don't make mistakes or forget anything. And the other person takes on the role of someone we can shift the burden onto. That's why it's easier to live together, of course, as long as people can actually tolerate each other. Because someone else can take on part of the household responsibilities, part of the load, and that relieves us. We feel a sense of relief. And it's pleasant when duties are shared. That's when things truly work together. Point 6. The other person restrains our inner beast. I have very often observed situations in life where, for example, an individual positioned right next to a group leader who is utterly unable to effectively defend their personal boundaries begins to behave in a much more brazen and overtly disrespectful manner. However, for instance, if there happens to be a group leader or even just an individual within the company who possesses the ability to establish clear boundaries and absolutely will not tolerate any form of permissiveness, then the person who habitually tends to overstep those boundaries will gradually begin to behave much more appropriately and humanely when they are in their presence. It's like with a child. When there is someone present who will put a definitive end to their excessive permissiveness, the child will often distance themselves from that particular person, and this action inherently creates a clear limit, a firm boundary for what is truly allowed. And on one hand, this other person, whom our inner beast is somewhat afraid of, is perceived by us as a supervising figure, as someone who deprives us of freedom. Most often, the freedom to do whatever we want. But in fact, thanks to this person, we can quiet the beast in us and let our human side come forward. That is, sometimes a person who cannot control their own permissiveness is unable to achieve anything in life. For example, when such a person is in a group where there is someone they fear, they become more productive precisely because someone else is restraining their inner beast, something they cannot do. This external restraint leads to more constructive behavior. It's as if they become smarter, more focused, more disciplined, and more productive, not just for others, but for themselves as well. 7th point. The other person serves as a stimulus for growth. This often happens. When I am home alone, I might just wear any old pants, but when someone else is around, I put on nicer ones. It's as if being around others makes us want to be better. And this sense of something not being necessary for yourself, but if it matters to you, then let me do it. This can be a good motivator for growth, a good motivator for discipline. Yes, you start paying more attention to yourself, to your figure, to how you look. And sometimes being in love motivates us to look better, to go to the gym, to develop ourselves, and so on. In other words, we need another person as a stimulus because we don't need these qualities for ourselves. It's as if we're ready to develop them for someone else, but by developing them for another, we actually benefit ourselves. 8th point. Finally, you can have a conversation in your head with someone else, not just with yourself. My clients often tell me how they talk to me in their minds, because when they start talking to themselves, it's just things like, "You're an idiot," and so on. But when I recall how you analyze something or explain things, it's as if I have an alternative, an analyst in my head. Of course, this person is really communicating with themselves, not with me, that's clear. But it's as if they build an alternative consciousness, an alternative personality structure, precisely by relying on the other person, by differentiating themselves from the other. All these points, when you understand what is happening to you in the presence of another person, then you can influence these processes, you can affect them. So much so that when there's far too much freedom to do whatever you please, and you find yourself in a group where there's someone who seems to keep you in check, almost as if they're stopping you from completely spiraling out of control, then perhaps it's precisely thanks to that person that you're able to stay on track and remain this productive. Reflect on these points and write down examples from your own life for the point that triggered the strongest emotional response in you. Thanks to everyone on the English channel. This channel began as an experiment, and it's amazing to see how much interest it has already received. Our whole team is delighted that these videos are resonating with so many of you, and we're constantly working to improve their quality. For now, the channel has earlier lectures, but newer ones will appear here as well. In the future, we also plan to adapt other materials for the English-speaking audience. Step by step, we're building a space where you can feel safe, discover new perspectives, explore yourself freely, and work on improving your life and relationships. And as always, subscribe, like the videos, and leave your thoughts in the comments. We truly appreciate every bit of feedback, as it helps us understand what resonates with you and which topics you'd like to explore next. This is your way of saying thank you to me. Your likes and subscriptions help the channel grow and thrive. See you soon.